Hey everyone, in my video series on the main antagonists from Batman, the animated series, today it's Penguin's turn. The Penguin, whose real name is Oswald Cobblepot, is one of the most fascinating villains in Gotham City's underworld. Unlike many of Batman's other foes, he is not a psychotic maniac or a revenge-driven murderer, but a highly intelligent and strategically thinking criminal. He combines an aristocratic appearance with ruthless criminality and places great importance on his status and power. Penguin appears in 7 out of 85 episodes. I generally exclude cameo appearances. Let's first take a look at all these episodes together and what we learn about Penguin from them. Episode 12, I've got Batman in my basement. The episode begins with a typical crime in Gotham City. 2 crooks steal a valuable Fabergé egg and flee, only to be confronted by Batman. But before the Dark Knight can stop them, he is attacked by a giant South American vulture. The distraction allows the thieves to escape, while Batman finds only a trail of birdseed as a clue. Meanwhile, the young amateur detectives Sherman and Roberta discover a mysterious animal with their junior detective kit, which is mistakenly identified as a hawk by 2 older boys. Curiously, Sherman and Roberta follow the animal, which leads them to an abandoned birdseed factory. There, they observe how the thieves hand over the egg to their leader, the Penguin. Sherman immediately recognizes the egg as the famous Vonelster Fabergé egg and decides to inform the police. But before they can act, the vulture, Scrap, notices their presence. Before Scrap can attack them, Batman intervenes and manages to catch the animal with a net. However, the Penguin manages to weaken Batman with a gas attack, after which the hero flees heavily injured into the Batmobile. Sherman and Roberta, who are nearby, hide Batman in their vehicle and drive off to escape. Back in Sherman's basement, Batman lies unconscious on a couch, murmuring only the words cap, Soul, and visor. The children can't make heads or tails of it. Meanwhile, the older boys discover the Batmobile and play around with its functions until they accidentally find a capsule. At that moment, Scrap appears again, prompting Sherman to take the capsules and run into the house. Shortly thereafter, the Penguin and his men break into Sherman's house. While they search for Batman, the Penguin mocks the bourgeois furniture and wreaks havoc in the house. Sherman and Roberta set various improvised traps using Batman's equipment to stop the intruders. Although the villains are temporarily hindered, they ultimately drive the children into the basement, where the Penguin finally meets Batman. Just as the Penguin is about to kill the weakened hero, Batman awakens again and defeats the villains. He engages in a brief duel with the Penguin, using a screwdriver blade as a weapon, and ultimately defeats him. When the police arrive, the criminals are already subdued. In the final scene, Sherman hangs newspaper clippings about the case in his basement. The once skeptical older boys are now impressed by him and join his junior detective agency. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? The Penguin is not just an ordinary thief, but a sophisticated criminal who deals in stolen artworks and luxury items. He uses a trained vulture as a weapon and seems to have an affinity for exotic birds. His disparaging comments about the bourgeois furniture reveal his classic status as a wannabe aristocrat. Instead of direct confrontation, he prefers sneaky attacks with gas and surprise maneuvers. In an improvised duel, he proves to be a skilled fencer with an umbrella sword. Episode 36, The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne. In a remote area of Gotham, Judge Maria Vargas meets with 2 shady men. She hands them a large amount of cash in exchange for a videotape. But the crooks demand more money, which puts Vargas in a panic. Batman observes the scene and intervenes, but during the fight, the cassette falls onto a steel beam of a bridge. As Vargas desperately tries to save the tape, she falls and loses consciousness. Batman saves her, but the crooks manage to escape. Later in the hospital, Commissioner Gordon expresses doubts that Vargas has anything to hide. Batman, on the other hand, remains suspicious. When Gordon mentions that Vargas recently underwent a treatment at Dr. Hugo Strange's Yucca Springs Health Resort, Batman catches a lead. Bruce Wayne poses as a patient and undergoes Strange's therapy, which uses a hypnosis machine. During the treatment, Strange sees in Wayne's thoughts the murder of his parents and the symbol of Batman, and realizes in shock that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Strange immediately begins to monetize his newly acquired information. He contacts the Joker, Two-Face, and the Penguin and offers them Batman's true identity for sale. Meanwhile, Bruce examines Strange's machine and discovers evidence that Vargas' secret is an old debt. As a child, she accidentally caused a devastating fire. But before Bruce can secure his own cassette, it has already disappeared. While Strange holds his Batman auction, the situation escalates when the Joker, Two-Face, and the Penguin decide to pool their bids. Together, they bid over $50 million. But Bruce manages to free himself and play a manipulated video that undermines Strange's credibility. Angry, the three villains attack Strange and abduct him on a plane. In panic, Strange reveals Batman's identity, but the Penguin and the others laugh at him. Two-Face emphasizes that he personally knows Bruce Wayne and that he could never be Batman. Finally, they try to throw Strange out of the plane, but Batman stops them by cutting the fuel lines and forcing the plane to land. While Strange is being arrested, he is convinced he knows Batman's secret. But to his horror, Bruce Wayne suddenly appears, and Batman is standing next to him. Strange begins to doubt whether his conclusion was correct. In truth, Dick Grayson disguised himself as Bruce Wayne, while the real Bruce pretended to be Batman. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? He is a high-ranking member of the underworld and is treated as equal to Two-Face and the Joker. Instead of settling for less, he wants to make sure he can buy Batman at the highest price. While the Joker is driven by chaos and Two-Face has a dualistic worldview, the Penguin shows a more pragmatic approach. He wants evidence before believing Strange's claims. Despite his intellect, he falls for Batman's deception and mocks Strange, which shows that he overestimates his own intelligence. Episode 46, Almost Got Him. While hiding from the police, the Joker, the Penguin, Two-Face, and Killer Croc meet at the criminal underground bar The Stacked Deck to play poker and share their failed attempts to kill Batman. Each one tells their own story, in which they believe they came closest to killing Batman. The Penguin reports on a plan where he turned the birdhouse of a zoo into a deadly trap. He lured Batman there by pretending to break into the building. When Batman arrived, he was hit by a red gas cloud from the Penguin's infamous umbrella. Batman initially thought the gas was harmless, but the Penguin explained its true function. It was a lure for poisonous hummingbirds with deadly beaks. Batman tried to escape, but the little birds kept pecking at him. At the last moment, he destroyed a sprinkler system that incapacitated the hummingbirds. Before he could inject himself with the antidote, he was attacked by an enraged cassowary, a giant, aggressive flightless bird. Desperately, Batman grabbed one of the stunned hummingbirds and used its poisonous beak to incapacitate the cassowary. He pursued the Penguin, but the latter escaped with his umbrella helicopter. During the villain's tales, Killer Croc reveals himself to be Batman in disguise. The bar was a trap organized by the police, and everyone present is arrested. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? He has a fondness for birds. He uses them not only as pets but also as weapons. His specialty is unusual and deadly bird species, which he deliberately incorporates into his plans. He considers himself a cultured criminal. Even when he attempts to murder Batman, he uses elegant language and boasts about his strategic thinking. His plans are creative, but Batman is superior to him. The Penguin likes to present himself as a master strategist, but Batman can always free himself from his traps. He often escapes instead of being directly defeated, unlike the Joker or Two-Face, who are often beaten up or knocked unconscious by Batman. The Penguin usually opts for escape. Episode 47, Birds of a Feather. The Penguin is caught again attempting to steal from a museum. This time he wants to steal a painting by John James Audubon featuring duck motifs, which catches Batman's attention. After a brief chase, he is arrested. After his release, the Penguin decides to turn away from crime and integrate into Gotham's high society. But when he is released from prison, no one is waiting for him, and he has to take the bus. Meanwhile, the spoiled society lady Veronica Vreeland is contemplating how to restore her social status. Her friend Pierce Chapman suggests inviting the Penguin as an exotic guest to her next party. Veronica calls the Penguin and invites him on a date. He accepts enthusiastically and comes across as charming but socially awkward. In the restaurant, he makes inappropriate jokes and eats whole fish, which frightens the other guests. When the owners offer him the food for free, he interprets it as a sign of respect. Meanwhile, Veronica and the Penguin are ambushed by 3 criminals on their way home. The Penguin defends Veronica with his umbrella and even manages to retrieve her stolen necklace. Batman shows up and also attacks the Penguin because he believes he is in cahoots with the robbers. Veronica clarifies the situation, and Batman is visibly confused. Veronica and Pierce continue to amuse themselves with the Penguin. Bruce Wayne learns that they are just using him and warns them not to underestimate him. But they don't take the warning seriously. During the visit to the opera, the Penguin is enchanted by the music and sings along loudly, much to Veronica's displeasure. Despite everything, she continues to play the role of the enthusiastic companion. At the party, the Penguin shows his sociable side, but the attendees are shocked by his behavior. Meanwhile, Bruce notices that the Penguin has bought a golden penguin pendant to give to Veronica, a sign that he is serious about his feelings for her. However, the Penguin overhears Veronica and Pierce laughing at him. Deeply hurt, he knocks both of them out with knockout gas and kidnaps Veronica. Pierce alerts the police, but they are powerless. The Penguin demands a ransom, forces Pierce into a dangerous handover, and eventually brings both of them to the opera house, where he threatens to kill Veronica. Batman can defuse the situation, save Veronica and Pierce, and defeat the Penguin. Before he is taken away, Veronica says that she actually found him likable. But the Penguin, now disillusioned, coldly ignores her. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? He longs for acceptance. This is one of the few episodes where the Penguin does not appear as a criminal from the start. Instead, he seriously tries to fit into high society. He is, despite everything, cultured and intelligent. He knows the rules of high society, albeit not perfectly. His way of speaking, manners, and interests, for example opera and art, show that he sees himself as a gentleman. He has an ego that is easily hurt. The realization that he was used hits him deeply. He acts out of pure revenge, which drives him back into crime. He still has his principles. He could have killed Veronica, but it is unclear whether he actually did. He seems to be primarily hurt and angry, not cold-bloodedly murderous. Episode 55, The Mechanic. Batman and Robin are chasing a group of Penguin's henchmen who are fleeing after a failed heist. The chase ends abruptly when the criminals jump their car from a bridge onto a garbage ship. Batman can't brake in time, causing the front of the Batmobile to be destroyed. With great effort, he manages to get the damaged car to his secret mechanic, Earl Cooper. Earl, a brilliant engineer who built the Batmobile for Batman, promises to repair it in a few days. Meanwhile, the Penguin is furious with his henchmen because instead of stealing valuable stamps, they only took worthless ones. One of their accomplices, Arnold Rundle, who works at an auto parts company, provides the crucial clue. He has discovered an order of rare car parts that exactly match what the Batmobile would need after the crash. The Penguin seizes the opportunity and forces Rundle to lead him to Earl. After obtaining the information, he disposes of Rundle by sending him on a toy duck boat into a whirlpool. When Penguin breaks into Earl's workshop, he forces him to install a hidden remote control in the Batmobile, with which he can take control. Batman and Robin have no idea about the trap when they pick up the repaired car. As they drive off, Penguin takes control and begins sending the two on a life-threatening roller coaster ride. He disables the brakes, deactivates the ejector seat, and steers the car onto the roof of a parking garage to send it to its death. But Batman recognizes a hidden message in Earl's words. The mechanic had indirectly informed him that something was wrong. Batman uses the only functioning button in the car, the air conditioning switch, which instead activates the ejector seat. He and Robin catapult themselves out of the car before it explodes. Meanwhile, Earl manages to spray his guard with oil and take him out. Batman and Robin confront the Penguin, and Marva, Earl's daughter, helps by stepping on his foot. Finally, the Penguin is defeated and arrested. In Arkham, he later sits frustrated in the prison workshop and breaks a license plate with the inscription "One bat for you" out of anger over his defeat. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? He is clever enough to expose Batman's mechanic, an unusual success for a villain. He loves having control and enjoys seeing Batman and Robin helpless. Despite his intelligence, he often makes classic overconfidence mistakes by waiting too long with his game instead of eliminating Batman immediately. His pride is enormous. The fact that he destroys the license plate out of anger shows his personal obsession with Batman. Episode 58, Blind as a Bat. Wayne Tech presents a revolutionary military aircraft with stealth technology and a sensor system that enables blind people to interpret visual data. But in the middle of the demonstration, the plane is hijacked by none other than the Penguin, who begins to terrorize Gotham with it. During the chaos, a car explodes right in front of Bruce Wayne's face, leaving him completely blind. Dr. Leslie Tompkins assures him that the blindness is probably only temporary, but she warns him that any effort could worsen his condition. But Bruce feels compelled to stop the Penguin. With Alfred's and Leslie's help, he builds a portable system based on the stolen technology that allows him to perceive his surroundings through a digital interface. The Penguin demands a ransom from Gotham and destroys a bridge to prove he means business. Batman lures him into a trap by pretending to hand over the ransom and uses the Batwing to attack the stolen plane. But Penguin escapes and attacks Batman with the cloaking weapon. During the aerial battle, the Batwing is damaged, and Batman loses his vision device. Now completely blind, he flees into a steel factory, pursued by Penguin. He enjoys mocking Batman by confusing him with sounds. But Batman uses his other senses to level the playing field. He hears drops falling on his head and realizes that he is under a water tank. He opens the valve, causing steam to rise, which disorients the Penguin. With both now blinded, Batman wins the fight with a surprise attack and defeats the Penguin. The next morning, Leslie removes Bruce's bandages, and he can see again. In the newspaper, he happily reads that the Penguin is back behind bars. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? Penguin thinks more strategically than many other villains. Instead of just stealing, he uses high technology to become a real threat to Gotham. He enjoys demoralizing his opponent by exercising psychological terror, in this case, by mocking Batman for being blind. Despite his intelligence, he repeatedly underestimates Batman, which leads to his defeat. Episode 80, Second Chance. Two-Face undergoes a procedure to restore his face and possibly erase his criminal personality. But before the procedure can take place, he is kidnapped. Batman and Robin try to find out who is behind it and suspect either Rupert Thorne or the Penguin. Batman visits Penguin in prison. Penguin admits that Two-Face once stole a valuable statue from him, but he claims that he would have preferred to confront him directly rather than staging an abduction. To get rid of Batman, he sets a flock of birds on him and pushes him off a wall. Batman can escape, but the suspicion falls on someone else. Finally, it turns out that Two-Face kidnapped himself. The part of him that didn't want to be healed sabotaged his own operation. In a final battle, Batman forces Two-Face to make a decision without his coin. But Two-Face cannot exist without it and almost falls to his death. Batman saves him at the last second. In the end, Harvey is taken back to Arkham while Bruce and Dick talk about how they will always be there for each other. What do we learn about Penguin in this episode? Unlike many other villains, the Penguin is not out for revenge. He is pragmatic and would rather confront Two-Face directly. He still enjoys tormenting Batman. He sends his birds after him just to annoy him. Despite his arrogant demeanor, he is not the main antagonist in this episode, but merely another criminal in Gotham. The Penguin is small in stature, slightly corpulent, and is characterized by his bird-like shape, especially his hooked nose and waddling gait, which earned him his name. His trademark is his elegant attire, usually a tailcoat, a monocle, and a top hat, as well as his modified umbrella, which he uses as a weapon or gadget. His demeanor is a mix of cultivated aristocracy and criminal cunning, and he enjoys feeling superior to others. The Penguin stands out from many other criminals in Gotham due to his intelligence and strategic thinking. He plans his crimes with precision and not only uses brute force but also employs cunning and manipulation. His plans often rely on economic or technological advantages, and he masterfully knows how to gain access to resources that bring him closer to his goals. In The Mechanic, he demonstrates remarkable investigative skills as he tracks down Batman's secret mechanic through a trail of car parts, a remarkable feat that even the detective Batman doesn't notice immediately. In Blind as a Bat, he steals cutting-edge technology and uses it in a way that briefly makes him the most powerful threat to Gotham. Although he is not known for physical fights, he is still dangerous. He carries firearms, uses his umbrella as a weapon, and does not hesitate to employ brutal methods when necessary. The Penguin is a narcissist with a pronounced need for recognition. He considers himself a cultured gentleman and believes he is above the ordinary criminals of Gotham. Despite his refined demeanor, he is extremely unscrupulous, selfish, and vengeful. In The Mechanic, he shows a sadistic side as he chases Batman and Robin through the streets, not immediately delivering the final blow. He wants to see them suffer. This behavior is repeated in Blind as a Bat, when he mocks Batman for being blind. These moments reveal his joy in control and power over his opponents. At the same time, he has an extremely low tolerance for frustration and cannot bear to be mocked or humiliated. In The Mechanic, this is clearly seen when he breaks a license plate in anger because it contains a reference to Batman. The Penguin views Batman as a bothersome but respectable opponent. Unlike the Joker or Two-Face, he does not harbor any personal hatred towards him. Rather, he sees Batman as a nuisance who denies him his well-deserved power and success. However, he often underestimates Batman, which repeatedly leads to his defeat. Especially in The Mechanic, it becomes clear that he is frustrated by Batman's invincibility. He believes that he has finally defeated Batman this time, only to end up behind bars again in the end. The Penguin usually operates independently and has little respect for other villains. In Second Chance, we learn that he didn't kidnap Two-Face because he considers it inefficient. Instead, he would confront him directly. This shows that he considers himself smarter than other criminals and often does not collaborate with them when it is not necessary. Despite its cleverness, the Penguin has crucial weaknesses. He often considers himself invincible, which leads him to underestimate Batman time and again. His pride often gets in his way, whether through temper tantrums or impulsive decisions. Although he is intelligent, he does not always recognize the finesse of Batman or other opponents. The Penguin is a notorious criminal in Gotham City with a unique blend of intelligence, narcissism, and sadism. His personality is characterized by a deep need for recognition, an exaggerated sense of superiority, and a lack of empathy. In several cases, he exhibits impulsive behavior, combined with a pronounced ability for long-term planning. These character traits indicate various psychiatric diagnoses that could explain his behaviors and criminal tendencies. 1. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. Grandiose self-image. The Penguin considers himself a superior intellectual and a gentleman gangster, setting himself apart from ordinary criminals. In The Mechanic, he considers it a personal insult that his henchmen make a simple mistake and points out that he is a master strategist. Need for admiration. He enjoys it when his opponents have to show him respect. In The Blind as a Bat, he mocks Batman and exploits his blindness to feel superior. Lack of empathy. He has no qualms about sacrificing his own men or innocents as long as it serves his purpose. In The Mechanic, he generously pays an informant, only to coldly kill him afterward so that he can't help anyone else. Hypersensitivity to criticism. In The Mechanic, he goes berserk when he finds a license plate with the inscription "One bat for you," a reference to Batman, and breaks it in anger. This shows his inability to accept mockery or defeat. Exploitive behavior. He uses his henchmen as mere tools. In Blind as a Bat, he uses Falcone without regard for his safety to take out Batman. The combination of a sense of superiority, lack of empathy, and the pursuit of recognition fits well with narcissistic personality disorder. The Penguin sees itself as intellectually and socially superior, demands respect, reacts extremely sensitively to criticism, and manipulates others for its own purposes. 2. Antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. Lack of remorse. The Penguin shows no guilt for his crimes or murders. Even when he endangers lives in The Mechanic, he feels no remorse. Deceptive and manipulative behavior. He uses cunning and deception to achieve his goals. In Blind as a Bat, he exploits Batman's blindness and tries to set a trap for him. Impulsive and irresponsible behavior. Although he is a strategist, he often acts thoughtlessly when his emotions boil over. His outbursts in The Mechanic and Second Chance show that he cannot always control his impulses. Disregard for the safety of others. In Blind as a Bat, he terrorizes the city with a stolen attack helicopter, without regard for civilian casualties. The Penguin meets many criteria for antisocial personality disorder. He lies, manipulates, shows no compassion, has no problem with violence, and is ready to kill his enemies without hesitation. However, his ability for long-term planning distinguishes him from more impulsive criminals with ASPD. 3. Sadistic personality disorder. This is outdated, but relevant as a comorbid trait. The sadistic personality disorder was removed from the DSM, but many of its features are still diagnostically relevant, especially as part of the dark personality traits, like sadism, narcissism, Machiavellianism. Joy in humiliating others. In The Mechanic, he plays with Batman and Robin by trapping them in their sabotaged Batmobile and making them drive helplessly through the city instead of killing them directly. Enjoyment in control and dominance. He takes pleasure in manipulating others and inflicting pain or fear upon them. In Blind as a Bat, he laughs at Batman's blindness and takes pleasure in confusing him acoustically. No empathy for victims. He kills or injures others without visible emotions. He sees people as chess pieces. While sadism is no longer officially recognized as a standalone disorder, the Penguin exhibits sadistic traits, particularly through its enjoyment of humiliating and controlling others. There are some mental disorders that could be confused with the diagnoses mentioned above. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, OCPD. The Penguin shows a certain love for order, but its behavior is characterized not by perfectionism, but by a drive for power. Psychosis, e.g., schizophrenia. He shows no delusional beliefs or hallucinations. His behavior is orderly and rational. He is a calculating criminal, not a psychotic madman like the Joker. The Penguin is highly likely suffering from a narcissistic and antisocial personality disorder, combined with sadistic tendencies. He is an intelligent, manipulative, and ruthless criminal who feels superior and shows no empathy for others. His pathological personality traits make him extremely dangerous, and successful rehabilitation would be highly unlikely.